Good morning, everyone. I'm back today to talk to you about another tricky spelling strategy. And the strategy I want to teach you today is called ghost letter digraphs. Now, we know that with our English language that sometimes the spelling rules don't always apply. And sometimes we need to just remember or memorize how words are spelt, especially in this circumstance when we have ghost letters. Now, ghost letters are letters that are put together and you don't hear them, but you see them. So, for example, the first ghost I have on my chart here is KN. Sometimes we see the letters KN together at the beginning of a word, but we don't actually hear the K. We only hear the N. So some examples are the word no, knob, not, night, knife, and knuckle. Now, in all of those words, they all begin with K, but we don't hear a K sound at the beginning. We only hear the N sound. And that can trick us because usually when we try to sound out or spell a word we don't know, we sound it out. So we don't hear that K sound. And so this is a circumstance where we need to just remember or memorize that it has a silent K at the beginning. Another example would be this ghost over here that has a W and an R together. Now, when we have a W and an R together, we usually only hear the R sound. So the W is a ghost. You can't hear it. So some examples are the word right, wrong, wreck, wrap, wrestle, and wreath. Those are all examples of ghost letter WR. You only hear the sound. So again, it's tricky because you need to remember that there's a silent W at the beginning. Okay, the next one I want to talk to you about is GN. Now GN's a tricky one because sometimes we find it at the beginning of a word and sometimes we find it at the end or in the middle of a word. And I bet you can guess which letter is the ghost letter, which one we don't hear. It's the G. We don't say gun, we just say n. So some examples are these words: gnaw, gnat. Oh, and here's one where it's at the end: sign. So we don't hear sign. If we sound it out, we don't hear that G. We only hear sign. Gnome. And then this one is rain. And this is not like the rain drops. This is like a horse reigns or the reign of a king. Okay? And the last one I have is MB. MB we usually find at the end of a word. And we usually, this is kind of backwards because in MB, the ghost letter is actually the B. We hear the M, but we don't hear the B. So it actually doesn't follow the same rules as these other ghosts because these other ghosts, we don't hear the first letter. But for MB, we actually don't hear the second letter. So again, our English language is really tricky because the rules don't always work and we just need to remember these tricks. So for example, crumb, climb, comb, thumb, limb, and lamb. You don't hear a b sound at the end. So these are only some of our ghost letter digraphs. There are many more, but I just wanted to talk to you about this strategy because when you get to a word and you see a K at the very beginning, if you saw the word not and you needed to sound that out, you would probably start by going not. Cannot? That doesn't make sense. So you'd need to remember that strategy that when K and N are together, usually the K is silent. It's a ghost letter. Okay? So I actually have a great little book that I want to read you, and it's called Silent Letters, Loud and Clear. And in this story, we're going to see lots of examples of some silent ghost letters. And it's written by Robin Pulver, illustrated by Lynn Rowe Reed. Thank you to Scholastic for allowing me to read this story to you. Oh, I like even the first page before the story starts. Here it says, silent letters, K, like knee and not, W, like wrong, wrist and Mr. Right, B, like thumb and crumb. Oh, and this is a good one. We haven't talked about this one. P, as in pterodactyl. Do you say pterodactyl or just pterodactyl? Just pterodactyl. So it's a silent letter. And then over here, well, we've already talked about silent final E or sneaky E. In orange, face, saved, picture, wished, home, alone, and hide. And it says, practice, practice, practice. Good spellers are made, not born. Every day in Mr. Wright's classroom, without fuss or bother, the silent letters waited to take their positions in the spelling words. They never called out, me, me, me. When it was their turn, they crept into their places without a sound. Do you notice that on this page that the silent letters are actually have a different kind of font? They've got kind of like a bubble font, so that's a clue. So when you're looking at the words, I want you to look for those letters that have a different font. Those are our silent letters. We're not shy, we're just tight-lipped. We laugh a lot when we're together, but we know when to be silent too. I'll climb on here. And here we have the word sight, G-H, we don't hear that H. Daughter, we don't hear the H in daughter or the G. And in thumb, we only hear the M, we don't hear the B. I'm no knight in shining armor. I'm just doing my job. Knee, knuckle. I'll wriggle in here. Wrinkle. Do you see the silent letters? Often, silent E was chosen last. Fine with me, I like being last. I long for you. And here it says, fine. Fin becomes, with an E, becomes fine. One day, Mr. Wright checked his wristwatch. That wraps up our spelling lesson, he said. Remember, a mistake or two doesn't mean you're a bad speller. It means you've almost spelled the word right. Now let's give a cheer for silent letters. The silent letters waited, but no cheer came. The silence was deafening, and here we have some of those silent letters. A, E, W, P, K, and T. They're not making any noise because they're silent. Until the kids started complaining. Mr. Wright, why do we have to use silent letters in spelling at all? We can't hear them. Silent letters are a pain. Silent letters make spelling too hard. Silent letters are dumb. If that's how you feel, said Mr. Wright, you should send an email to the newspaper. Make your opinions known. Great idea, said the kids. Kate sat down on the computer. The other kids helped her decide what to write. Dear editor, Mr. Wright says good spellers are made, not born. But we don't like silent letters. We can't hear them. Who needs them? Why use them? Silent letters should be banned. We hope you print this. We hope people will read it and agree that we are quite right. Hopefully yours, Mr. Wright's class. P.S. Kate wrote this. Now, what do you think Kate would be if she didn't have a silent E at the end of her name? Can you see it? If you took that E off, She would be cat, so she'd be a totally different name. The silent letters were dumbfounded. Silent GH sighed. I thought we were important. I know we are, muttered Silent K. Now my stomach is in knots. Silent W wrung his hands. I'm a wreck. I feel wrenched. I don't know how I feel, said Silent B. I'm numb. Silent E said, I'm at the end of my rope. Do you get it? E is at the end of rope. They're pretty funny letters too, aren't they? We're all in the same boat, groaned Silent A. Let's leave. The silent letters high-fived. Just before Kate pressed send, the silent letters sneaked out of the kids' email. Let's hide in the supply closet, said Silent E. We'll be safe. And out of sight, said Silent GH. I've got a flashlight. The silent letters nestled in cave-like darkness. Those kids shouldn't blame us. We used to be pronounced once upon a time. In the time of the pterodactyls? Asked Silent P. Not quite so long ago, said Silent E. Probably in the time of knights and castles. The silent letters didn't want to suffer in silence anymore. They wanted to speak up for themselves. But how? What could they do? Fight with all our might. Scream like in a bad dream. But the silent letters had to admit they weren't the fighting or screaming types. Finally, G said, we could use sign language. Bright idea. Everything they needed was right there in the supply closet. Looks like markers and glue and pencils. What are they going to do? The next day, Mr. Wright's class couldn't wait to check the newspaper. They opened right to the editorial page. Our letter, it's here, shouted Joe. We're famous. The kids gave a cheer, loud and clear. But when they started to read, it was the kids' turn to be silent. Dear editor, Mr. Ritt says good spellers are mad, not born. But we don't lick silent letters. We can't hear them, so Ho needs them. Why us them? Silent letters should be banned. We hope you print this. We hope people will read it and agree that we are quit Ritt. Hopefully yours, Mr. Ritt's class. P.S. Cat wrought this. Uh-oh. That does not sound like the same letter that they originally wrote. They're missing those silent letters. Finally, the kids got their voices back. W, what happened? Somebody messed up our email. What's hopefully or hopfully? What's this about a band? Who is Mr. Ritt? Cat rot? This letter is embarrassing. The kids were even more embarrassed when they read the editorial next to their letter. Huh? What? Fire Mr. Ritt? Of course good spellers are mad. So are we. Our readers don't have time to figure out messages with sloppy spelling. The only reason we're printing this letter is to highlight the spelling crisis in our schools. The editors. The kids gathered around Mr. Wright, who was pale and sagging. It's not your fault. Suddenly, the knob on the supply closet door turned. The door creaked open, and out marched the silent letters. They were carrying protest signs that they had made. They looked brave. Don't knock silent letters. Silent letters are mighty fine, not middy fin. Protect our right to remain silent. Silence is golden. Over here it says, thumbs up for silent letters. Don't leave me out. Don't write us off. They're back. The kids cheered loud and clear. Mr. Wright burst into grateful tears. Right away, with the help of the silent letters, Mr. Wright's students wrote another letter to the editor. Winner of the Golden Pen Award, Best Letter of the Week. Dear editor, never fear. The future looks bright for spelling. We made peace with silent letters. We have learned to bravely face our mistakes. Our teacher says the answer is knuckle down and practice. As usual, Mr. Wright is right. Your friends, Mr. Wright's Kids and Silent Letters. Not perfect yet, but a brave try. The quiet ones always surprise you. And that is the end of the story. So I think Mr. Wright gave really good advice that the most important thing to do is to practice, practice, practice. And when you are spelling, we know, especially in grade 1 and 2, we never expect you to get your spelling 100% right. But if you keep this strategy in mind about the ghost letters, it will help you when you are sounding words out. And if you see that funny W at the beginning of a word, and it's beside an R you usually know, that W is silent. So today, on our Week at a Glance, we've got a couple silent letter activities that we want you to try. The first one here is a fill in the blank. And down at the bottom, we've got a word bank with a bunch of silent ghost letters. What you need to do is read the sentence to figure out what word makes sense and then to put it in the blank. So you might need a little bit of help from your parents with this one, but give it a good try. Then the next activity, this is kind of a fun one. I know how much you guys love word searches. Here we've got some word searches. And we've got a word search, I should say. And here we've got a word bank with some silent letter words. See if you can find them in the word search. And then write 3 sentences using 3 of the words in the word search. Okay? And then the next one, this one is a really tricky one, but I think you can do it. Here we've got a little story that I want you to read. And you might use a highlighter or a marker, and we know how much you love to use highlighters because when you use the highlighter, that helps you find important information. So you're going to read this story, and then you're going to highlight any words that have silent letters like KN, GN, and WR. So once you are reading, if you come across that word, you're going to highlight it. So for example, here I see the word knitting. I'm going to highlight that word knitting. Then at the very bottom, you're going to go through and write down all of those words that you highlighted that have silent letters inside. Okay? So good luck with this, grade 1s. I know that this is a tricky concept, and like we said, we never expect you to be perfect, but it's a strategy that if you learn this strategy and you have that in your brain, then it will help you to be a better speller, a better reader, and a better writer. So good luck and have an awesome day.